Welcome back to AI Search, the podcast about AI and ML in every industry. We're so excited to have Stefan here today, a lawyer who's been working worldwide and specifically in Croatia about EU technology law. Hey Stefan, how are you doing today?
Fine, I have no complaints. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're really excited. So let me know a little bit about your educational background. You've been studying kind of all over in the UK, at Harvard, in Croatia, of course. And how did that kind of path get you started? And how did that kind of merge into the technology law that you're working on today?
Okay, well, I'm happy that we got Harvard out of the way within the first minute.
Of course.
I have plans of having a tattoo on my forehead just for everyone to see. And let me start with a joke. I don't know if I told you this before. If I did, pretend that I didn't.
Okay.
Do you know how to recognize someone who went to Harvard?
He'll tell you, right?
Okay.
I heard it.
You heard it. Okay,
it reminds me of the show The Office, you know, when he's
yes.
always going to Cornell.
Yes.
Andy,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's okay. I think you deserve it. You put your life on hold to go study, and you did a great job. So.
It's a marketing tool.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, so I had plans of working in EU institutions in the field of tech law, and so I thought that if I want to get there, I have to compete not just with the Croatians, but with all Europeans, including those who went to bachelors at Oxford, Cambridge, etc., knowing that the University of Zagreb doesn't fare so well as its Western European competitors. So for that reason, I used all the opportunities. I went to Sorbonne during the Erasmus. I had an internship at the European Parliament, a half year at the Court of Justice of the European Union, including in the office with the President. And there, actually, I stumbled upon a GDPR case. It was a case about the territorial application of the right to be forgotten. So this was a French case against Google, and the question was if you want some information to be erased, and for instance in that case it was a French case, if you're French, should this information be erased only from the French Google, so google.fr, or or that it's not visible to anyone accessing it from Europe or any of the domains of national domains of European EU member states countries, or worldwide. And so once grappling these issues, I realized that there's something interesting about this, and often law is not the most interesting profession. I hope no lawyers will be listening.
Yeah, this is very problem-solving, interesting little quirk, right?
No, definitely. But there, I decided to go to LSE. I had the pleasure to go to the Harvard Law School. But as I wanted to get specialized in this field of tech law, I realized that I have to become bilingual, not just in the sense of English Croatian, but in the sense of speaking law and speaking tech. And of course, I will never be at the level of the clients or developers or whatever, but at least to scratch the purpose that the motto of LSE is understanding the causes of things. So understanding the things at the basic level. I think you cannot give legal advice if you don't understand how the product, how the service of the client works, or how they, as an entrepreneur, operate. And in that sense, I took, there was a computer science class at Harvard Law School for lawyers, or as the professor called it, for dummies. You can cross-register a fourth of your coursework in other schools at Harvard and other universities. So I had a stint at MIT. This was with Gary Gensler, who became the Securities and Exchange Commissioner during the Biden administration. I also had courses at the business school. What else? But the point here is that I think that in everyday life you have to have an interdisciplinary approach. So if you're a developer entrepreneur, you also have to know the basics of marketing. If you're a competition lawyer, you have to understand macro and microeconomics.
Yeah.
If you're a techler, you have to understand the technical part. I hope that I answer your question.
No, I love that, and I think that's so true. I think in every single job, especially nowadays with kind of the birth of AI, kind of doing these simple tasks, it's really important to be versatile and to at least try to dip your feet into the water of different different career paths to enhance your own career path, because I think that's going to be something that's going to be really necessary in the future from my point of view. Also, I didn't start in marketing in any way, but I feel like just to lead the marketing team, you have to know so much about it just to even get started. So props for that. And I think
sorry if I could use this opportunity, but what was your core education?
Yeah, well, actually, funny story. I studied dance performance at university, so I had like a whole career in dancing. But in high school, I went to a multimedia design school. I spent my entire high school career studying multimedia design, which was everything from front-end development to web design to all the entire pretty much Adobe package. But back in the day when we were animating frame by frame, so I used this to work in UX. This user experience, so both in design and also kind of the research aspect of the psychological aspect of researching what users will actually need for the application and how that will affect the environment. So not only, like for example, companies like Bolt and Volt and food delivery is good for the user, but not necessarily good for the city. So this kind of human-centric design. So this is kind of what I was working on.
I see some commonality as you had to perform as a dancer. You're fully capable of performing now in front of the cameras. And also, instead of satisfying the public as a dancer, you have to satisfy the consumers. So.
So I spent already the last 7 years working hardcore in this field. So from design, and as I grew up into higher levels of design, you have to manage people and manage whole teams and departments. So this is kind of how I got to the position where I am today.
And I want to tell you, I have a lot of questions for you. So this was just the first one. Okay, I'm not going to steal the hosting.
It's okay. Yeah. So I would love to know, first you were working at a law firm in Zagreb here. So you chose Zagreb as kind of your home base, of course, even though you had this, huge amount of education around the world. And then recently you opened your own firm. So what kind of inspired you to leave? I mean, I think there's a lot of things when you can freelance on your own, but what gave you the confidence and inspired you to open your own firm in Zagreb, and what kind of clients are you helping now?
So I see this as a two-part question. First, why Zagreb, why Croatia, and why solo practice? The majority of my classmates at Harvard ended up taking the New York bar exam, working in Manhattan at the 60th floor with amazing view. But I soon realized that once you're working in this big law in Manhattan, you maybe have a view, but it's actually towards your screen. You're not looking over Manhattan. And all of my friends, colleagues, and acquaintances who worked in big law in New York, London, or Brussels, to a lesser degree, were working really overtime, weekends, crazy hours, which rarely allows you to have the work-life balance to have a family. I personally grew up without a father, so I am very ambitious in my field, but I cannot afford to be an absent father. So I have to have, work-life balance. I have to succeed on my private perspective, in my private life, but also in my work life. For that, I have to have a fairer balance, and I could have that in Croatia. The legal culture. We work a lot, but it's not as intense as in big law.
I think this is the reason I was also inspired to move to Croatia, because for me, I was noticing this, and I was already in my mid-20s, like, oh, this is not going to work. It was a main driver, so I like to hear that too.
No. Plus, I mean, as you get older, I mean, it's harder. I see those colleagues as Olympians. I mean, they're like, it's like a sport to stay healthy without using any substance, gentlemen, ladies. But to stick to the question, the main reason why I went to solo practice is the freedom. Is the freedom and the flexibility to organize the time and my efforts on my own, that I have sales pitches and I go client fishing with the clients that I wish to hunt, to acquire. Hunt, that's very...
Well, it's a reality of any entrepreneur, CEO.
It just depends on the phrasing.
Yeah.
But so this really makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And also, Karl Marx said that the workers feel alienated if they're disconnected from the fruits of their labor. Now, I'm not a communist, but that sounds very good to me, because now I feel connected to the fruits of my labor, and even though I now work more than before, it doesn't feel so burdensome, because I will profit from all those extra hours. It's an investment of my time connected with my prosperity. I have plans, and if everything goes okay, I will have another person with me, an employee, starting on mid-September, and I just started half a year ago. So I'm really looking forward to broadening my team one step at a time.
Yeah, nice. And I think that's true. It's like you're building your own empire, growing your own garden, and whatever you do that you're building with your own hands, I think you can kind of get more enjoyment from that. Yeah.
No, definitely. To be honest, I was very unhappy with the law firm life before, and now it's a direct opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, we will see how long it lasts, but currently I sense a change in my attitude towards work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear nowadays with AI coming in, and with EU law and like AI EU Act. I think there's a lot of fear because there's not a lot of knowledge. People always tend to fear things that they don't know about, right? I've seen a lot of talks that you've held about this subject, and I think they're very interesting, and how you actually advocate that the charges aren't maybe so high, or they're actually easily avoidable. Can you comment a little bit about this EU AI Act that's coming out, the repercussions that are going to happen to EU companies, but maybe also the benefits that we can actually see from this kind of law that could be passed in our region?
Okay, so first let's know that the AI Act is risk-based. It has this approach. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you categorized as high risk, and you could be if this AI is used in education, in the health sector, employment, judicial system, political system, migration, etc., or if it's a safety component, for instance, in cars, etc., then it's a high risk, and there is a whole plethora of obligations.
Yeah.
But if you're anything less than that, there's a very small amount of obligations, a small amount of regulatory burden and cost. And there are some researchers and calculations, and for instance, the EU AI office predicts that only 15% of European AI companies could potentially fall within the high risk category. So there is a lot of fear surrounding this new act, because the penalties are high, there's a lot of obligations, but they're more or less, I don't know, should we say 85%, but there's huge chances that this act might not even apply to the listener, to the entrepreneur in the AI sector. And even if it applies, I have a feeling that some of the consultants, they profit from fear. It's a good selling technique if someone is fearful and you're here to save them. But I think that's far from the truth. Maybe I'm looking from the creation perspective, where consultancy fees or attorney law fees are much lower than, I don't know, in Paris, London, Brussels, US, etc. But I really would like to challenge the fact that this AI Act represents a big regulatory burden and cost. I think that highly likely the truth for a particular company is opposite. Now, why do we have this act in the first place? Well, let's take a look at our competitor, the United States, which I love. But what kind of country is they're going to invoke my visa. But what kind of policy is it that you send emails to millions of employees, ask them what have you done lately, and then use AI to process this? How precise could this be? Moreover, the example where okay, you wanted to remove the policies, you wanted to remove everything regarding DEI, diversity initiatives. Okay, we can debate that. Is that policy okay or not? We can debate it. But is the means to achieving that goal that you simply have a AI who blankly removes everything, such as the famous airplane Enola Gay, which was used for the atomic bomb in Japan, but it was removed because it has the name gay, even though it doesn't have, it's a last name, it's not a sexual orientation reference. Something like that would not be possible in Europe. I think that such an act, even though it might be burdensome for some of the entrepreneurs, and I understand them, they're sick and tired of the red tape, but this law protects us all, that we continue living our European way of life. But at the same time, the regulators have to put in the effort and find a way, find interpretation of the new law, how to thread the needle, how to, at the same time, protect human rights, but also not stifle innovation and our European AI IT sector. I think that we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. How do you think this is? I think there's a lot of fear in consumers as well, and how is this going to affect them? Because I think, exactly as you said, I think there is kind of a profit margin of being able to instill fear in the masses, unfortunately, and I think there's so much, not necessarily fear, but lack of awareness about AI and lack of education about AI. And I don't know, even when I'm scrolling Instagram or TikTok, some things are just blatantly incorrect, and it's kind of just like, okay, you really only know a little bit about one generative AI model and nothing about every ML company that's actually creating valuable content. So how do you think the consumers are reacting right now to this AI Act, considering the fact that maybe they haven't read anything, maybe they're just kind of scrolling Instagram online, they saw something, and they're not really sure what's going on?
Well, I think, this is my opinion, that the European Union has their back. And now again the question is, does this stifle us in the race with US and China? Because everyone says that this is the greatest weakness of Europe, this over-regulation, as they coined the phrase. I believe that we have to spin this. We have to use our biggest weakness and turn it into our biggest strength. I believe that Europe needs to have a brand that any AI services, products, components are made in the EU, which means safety and trust. And I think these questions of safety and trust are becoming more and more dominant in the world, and I think this could be a competitive advantage for European companies while selling their products within Europe, but also globally.
Very true. And I think building a brand as the EU, I think EU, and especially, for example, even Switzerland, as its own as a country, has been known for, generational high quality products in any source, whether they're software, whether they're drones, whether they're physical products, as well as other EU countries. And I think if we just keep on kind of plowing in that way, similarly to how Japan does it, Japan's also very known for high quality products, I think we're going to see a lot of economic success from that, although it seems like we are slower than China and the US, but we also don't have the manpower of China and the US, so it's going to be very interesting.
I mean, in comparison with China, the question is, what are we willing to sacrifice on the altar of profits? So for instance, there is a healthcare company in China which worked on creating a software on identifying breast cancer. And China's the Communist Party allowed access to a large amount of health data, so these models could be trained. Now, this wouldn't be possible in Europe, but the question is, do we want the government
I think this is really interesting because my dad, before he retired, he worked in genomics and in ML research for genomics, and I think the thing he complained about the most, because in the US, right, he worked in the US, was the fact that the hospitals weren't sharing the data. So any data set that, or every private company that had some sort of data set could do training on that data, but maybe they were missing like another company or another information from the hospital in order to supplement that data, in order to find all the genomes that could be, broken or certain genetic modifications that could predict cancer or other illnesses. And he was always so frustrated because he's a very scientific research person that, if we just had all this data from the world, we would be able to, solve these questions. But now I have to go with every single private company. I have to redo the same process again and again and again. And I think, China has this kind of huge benefit because of that. But then also it's, I would say the US is more racially diverse than China. So also how unfortunately, there's different health, benefits for different races, and I think the U.S. is a great subset since it's very racially diverse. It'll be able to kind of plow medicine a little bit further for all types of people.
And I mean, there are also lesser known acts in the EU, and everyone knows about GDPR, but there are newer regulations such as the Data Governance Act and the Data Act, which want to move away from the stick approach, but also offer carrots to entrepreneurs, in the sense that these acts provide a landscape, a platform of data sharing within the European Union, so it could allow the entrepreneurs to have this scale of data which is needed for model training or whatever other purposes. I think that's a good step, but I mean, we need more steps in this direction.
I think this can be something that can be really revolutionary, especially in the health sector. I agree. For a lot of other sectors, I think it's something that's unnecessary, and it's just a way to get bigger profits, especially in any sales and marketing businesses. But I think healthcare should definitely have its own kind of green flag, that they're allowed to be able to do adequate research, because I think we as a nation need to be able to do better research in healthcare without red lines everywhere.
No, I mean, it's a tricky question, but if there is a will, I think there is a way to reach it.
Yeah, very cool. So what are you excited about most in the upcoming years? What's happening with the laws and the technology, and where do you think there's going to be some nice breakthroughs with that?
Well, I have a date circled on my calendar. It's August the 2nd, 2026, and everyone should watch out for that one. Now, why I have this date is because the most, not all, but most big chunk of this AI Act will come into force. So there has been a lot of talk over this AI regulation, but it's still not in force. And so it will arrive in a year or so. And I think then the fun for all the law nerds will begin. I mean, I understand the entrepreneurs, they're not very happy with this date. But for my profession, I'm happy to plow into it, and already have for clients who want to prepare well ahead. And I think it's important to prepare well ahead, because you don't want to develop a service or a product now which will not be compatible with European laws in a year or so. And it will be a bigger cost to change things laterwards, if it's possible to change. So I think one has to think in advance and already prepare and have this privacy by design, compliance of this AI Act in advance. Now, I understand that from someone outside of the law, this might seem as a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy and red tape. But I think there is a way to achieve this as easily as possible, especially if it starts at the beginning of the business process. So once an entrepreneur is thinking of an idea to sell, or a product or a service, that they simply keep in mind some basic principles of all these main regulations that apply with them. And then I think it's a universe of possibilities, but you just have to be informed. If you're not informed, you will get yourself in trouble, or make it more costly and difficult.
Do you think entrepreneurs, like especially small startups, so like 1 or 2 people startups, do you think they are informed enough, or there's kind of a lack of education in this sector?
Well, I can tell, but just if you could stay between the two of us.
No?
No, the answer would be a short no. I mean, I think it's a problem with education in Croatia in general. The general education and the legal education. People look at GDPR as some bureaucratic, boring burden. So I understand people don't want to deal with it. But it's not that complicated. There's a set of principles, set of rules, set of goals. If you understand what's behind it, what is the logic, what is the wishes, the policy goals behind it, then everything flows from there. And I think if you're in the IT AI sector, to make your life easier, I think you have to have good quality 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever the amount is, but I think it's a handful, just to understand the basics. Once you understand the basics, then I think you can work. But to play the game, in a sense, the entrepreneurial game, you have to know what are the rules of the game. And I don't think that they're that harsh. As someone who maybe does not understand those rules properly, fears or believes that they are harsh.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's just a lot of phlegmatic entrepreneurs who are not really interested in, they just kind of want to plow through and get the idea. There's already so many other problems. There's, especially for a tech-heavy entrepreneur, already marketing is difficult for them, and sales is maybe difficult for them. So I think they're already struggling with this, and now they have to do legal.
Taxes.
And then taxes, and opening a business, and finding a space, and finding employees, and there's just so many things. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur.
And that's really come back to the start of the podcast, the question about interdisciplinary. Is interdisciplinarity. I don't think you have to be a Renaissance man, but I think you have to, or woman, or person, sorry. It depends, is it the Biden or the Trump administration, but I'm fine now. But I think you have to understand, or try to understand at least the basics. That's why I like that for this first half of the year I was on my own, because on my own I had to do the sales, the taxes, the accounting, and also understanding the clients, the business, and also the technology. And I'm only good in law. I'm not good in the other
Figure
parts.
out everything,
But I know basics, which help me operate in my profession. In that sense, I think that the IT, the AI entrepreneurs, it would help them to know the basics of the marketing, but also the basics of law, to make their life easier. And I don't think it's that hard. I think they just have to realize that this could be their advantage.
And this is one step in the process of becoming an entrepreneur and having your own company, and not to avoid that step, because I think that's a crucial step, just as important as your finances. Equally important is the legal side. So I think that's really important. And I hope that, I see the startup hubs in Croatia that they're trying to implement some sort of at least legal workshops and legal meetups, or even just different organizations are trying to include legal talks and meetups to help educate. So I think it's a step.
So I have to give a shout out to the Croatian AI Association, which I had the pleasure to collaborate with, and there have been workshops, namely in the GDPR AI Act field, but also other workshops, marketing, machine learning, etc. And I think this is a pleasant way of doing it with your peers on a free basis.
Exactly.
And it's no pressure, you know. No one will ask you, you know.
Show up, have some drinks and maybe some food, and I think there's a lot of, I think, unfortunately, I would say not more people should attend this because it's free, exactly as you said, but at least it's available, and I think that's fantastic, and I think it's very available in Croatia compared to other countries, especially if you don't live in the capital cities. It's also a little bit more difficult, but I think Croatia is also doing a really good job at kind of covering the entire Croatia as much as they can, and not just Zagreb, so that's very neat. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential in kind of making an entrepreneurial program, because I think that's one of Croatia's greatest exports at this moment, is exporting good IT and tech solutions.
And we have, for a country of our size, we have a lot of incubators helping to a certain degree for free startups in growing up and getting ready for the real world. So in that sense, again, if there is a will, there is a way. You know, you can go to incubator, you can go for a free event. It is there available. You just have to grasp it.
So what is the biggest advice that you would give an entrepreneur, just to finish out the podcast in a positive way, that you would give an entrepreneur in the legal space? Like, you know, if they were just starting out in AI, or if they're already working in AI, you know, is it time to go grab a lawyer? Is it a time to go research? Like, what's the biggest thing that you can kind of give them for food for thought to think about to make their company succeed better?
In the legal field?
Yes, in the legal field.
Okay. Well, so I would say two main points. It might come up with more, but for a start, I think you have to keep up with the technology. It will make your life easier. So I think you could use AI tools to make you more efficient in drafting memos, but at the same time you have to be cautious. So there has to be a human in the loop. You cannot rely on the AI which provides you with some, I don't know, case law, without checking, is this case law real? Because there are numerous examples in the world where the attorneys didn't check, blindly believed the AI, submitted to the court, and then they got fines from the Bar Association. So you have to be careful in that regard. Also, you have to be careful in that you don't submit any confidential data in these AI systems, because you never know. You have to be cautious. But taking those two things into consideration, I think it can really help you in this field. And you also have to give an extra value to the client, that you have to give legal advice, which they cannot find online or cannot use ChatGPT.
Very true.
Although I think another big issue in our time is misinformation, not just in the political misinformation, but also in a sense that people now more often consult ChatGPT for their health or legal issues or marital.
For anything.
And I'm not sure that's a good way of doing things. I mean, I think it can inform you, broaden the horizons. But at the end of the day, I don't think the technology is there. I think you still have to consult an expert, especially if it's something sensitive. So my first advice for fellow entrepreneurs in the legal field is try to keep up with the technology, be a cautious optimist. The second one is, if you're in the position of hiring, treat others as you wish they treat you. So if you were unhappy before with your previous employer, don't do the same mistake. Do not let
Yes.
the victim become the perpetrator.
Yeah, I have a notebook in my house.
Marin, are you listening?
No, all good. No, I have a notebook in my house of a list of things that I would, if I ever open a company, like what I would do. And it gets longer and longer.
But
Yeah,
I think
just ideas. I think it's good to.
no, I think it's a good exercise.
I think it's good to write it down because I think when you get into a good company and a good situation, you forget the. I mean, of course,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
human nature is to
Of
forget
course.
bad things, and you forget the things that kind of maybe bugged you or that bugged your colleagues and maybe didn't personally affect me but affected my colleagues. And so I always like to write it down. So one day, okay, so to let people live to their fullest and have this really nice work-life balance and see what works for each person.
No, I agree. And one can employ this not only if they're an owner of a big firm. If you just have one junior below you,
Yeah.
you can practice what you preach.
Yeah.
And I think this is an investment which has a high rate of return. If you show kindness, well compensate, or just be polite, give your time to educate the person you're working with, or listen to them, they might educate you. I think that they might give you in return with better work, better atmosphere, and I think the output will be better. I think that it's a wrong approach to save on the costs by saving on employees. And I think the Croatian legal corporate culture should belong in the bin, and it has to change, or even better. I hope that they don't change, so that I could have a competitive advantage.
That's true. Yeah. It's important to keep up with the times and to keep up with changing. But that's exactly when somebody doesn't change, you get the advantage because you're the first one to do it or one of the first few.
Can we cut this last part? I don't want them to hear it.
Save your secrets for yourself. Well, thank you so much, Stefan, today for joining us on the podcast. I really enjoyed hearing your view and everything that's going on with AI, and I think it gives us a lot of hope for the legal industry. And I think also just for your colleagues in the legal industry, like it's an exciting time to be alive, exciting time to be in this field. And I hope that studying law is not boring for young people, because there's going to be a lot of cool things coming out for your colleagues.
A bit less boring.
Yes, well, of course, but important nevertheless. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. You can watch AI Searched on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments.